No, you won't fool. Children of the revolution.
Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take care as your reality is adjusted.
Just give me a moment. I'm going to swap the screen to something else before we go any further this evening. I'm going to play this. Good morning, global gulag. Saying it because that is the usual way I say hello on these shows, as you know. Greetings, well met, fellow hail, salutations. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for joining us this evening, giving us your attention for a little bit. Hello, really graceful. Hello, thanks for joining in the chat. And High Impact Flicks, hello, mate. Glad you joining in as well. And hello to everyone else. There's a lot of names in there tonight. I'm sure there'll be lots more people showing up as we go along. And as we talk about things, I'll try and sort of cut to the chase a little bit. Yeah, welcome back. Another edition of Sol Excalibre on this usual moon day evening, as I like to refer to it as, because that's where the names of the day comes from. Moon day, after the sun day, all connected to astrotheology. But anyway, before we get into all that stuff, that track I just played was from a channel called Jeff C, or Jeff Censored. There's a lot of people got to know him in recent years. He had other channels before that, which we may end up talking about as we go along. He's not here with me in any sense other than in a spiritual ways. I can sense certainly the legacy that he's given to everyone. That might sound a bit grandiose at the moment, but hopefully, you know, as we talk about things, that maybe will register a bit more with people. I think for a lot of people in this environment, because this environment ends up creating a short attention span and a quick consumer cycle, and so many people are being hooked in by that addictive, like a gambling machine, the addictive effect of cycling, scrolling through their media to see, oh, what's up next? What's my latest notifications got for me? And quick supply of serotonin and dopamine hit, etc. So if your videos are too long, people lose interest. They can't focus for that length of time. They like things to be short and quick and easy. So they don't really notice the kind of long-lasting legacy, the long-lasting work that some people do and have done and are doing and have been doing for years and years and years. And in this, I call it YouTube for now. You know, it's not really YouTube anymore. It's Google. It's GooTube. It's part of the system, the controlled platforms of media. But yeah, here in this YouTube environment, a channel called Jeff C, or Jeff Censored, and that's how the vast majority of people knew him, was just Jeff or Jeff C. He made a very big impact, and he certainly created a long-lasting legacy, which, as I say, for some people that may be new to a lot of this environment, a lot of this information, a lot of these talking points that we often talk about, he could be just another name on YouTube. So it probably doesn't mean a lot to them other than it's just another channel producing content. But you'd be very surprised, I think, if you look at the history of his work over multiple channels, because as I say, most recently was most commonly known as Jeff C or Jeff Censored, and the Supreme Lord Commander, that channel had managed to just about keep going. But yeah, the older channels like New World Agenda and Free Radio Revolution, most people have probably not seen or heard of them. If you've only sort of come across this stuff in the last 2 or 3 years, you're probably not aware of any of that lot. But he had been diligently and consistently working away, putting out content, researching, as well as talking to many people, not just the circus crew, the usual cadre of networked marketeers who promote each other and have each other on as guests, and there's always adverts and paid content and promotional material and books and DVDs for sale and all the other usual commercialized marketing jazz that goes along with it. It's like a few of us, I'd include myself in this, we don't get into those circles because we're not invited, because we're the kind of people that often point a finger at that shit and call it out for the crap that it is. The marketeering and exploitation of people's emotions and fears and concerns about what's going on in the world. Yeah, he didn't get invited to those kind of circles, or rarely. He might have made a guest appearance where they'd try and attack him in some fashion or ridicule him, and he'd stand his ground and deal with the situation, which I've seen him do many times, or listened to him do many times. Yeah, maybe I should, yeah, as I said, get to the point and make sure up front before people feel they're being dragged along in some fashion. I have no insider information. I have no secret details that nobody knows about. Jeffrey's here with me in spirit, I'm sure of it, but I can't like say, oh, look, yeah, there he is. He's not really dead. Any of these kind of things that are unfortunately common questions that come up in any situation around somebody's bereavement, but also in this environment on the internet, in these social media realms that are saturated with manipulation and deliberate attempts to steer public thought in one direction or the other. There's a lot of people out there who will be trying to make hay out of this situation. That's an old sort of slang term to reference make benefit for themselves. You know, make hay while the sun shines is the full phrase, I think, if I remember it correctly. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that try to turn this into something so that they can generate some kind of benefit out of it for themselves or for their agenda. So I've got no sort of, you know, super informative details or anything like that. You know, please don't think I'm doing this the way I'm doing it because I'm trying to, you know, put out some kind of secret info. You know, look, I've got this, the secret data of what's going on. Not at all. It's nothing to do with that. I put the thumbnail this week. I just used my original thumbnail. I'll get that image up now, actually, because that's good time to mention this and get into talking about this. Yeah, I use my usual thumbnail that I have for these shows, but this time I just altered the image a little bit to put some text over it. And it, you know, it's a bit of a kind of like dramatic title because that was some of the font selections I could do with it. So I thought it worked well to do it like that. Let's stick my face back in there. Because, yeah, that's another point we could talk about. The lack of the face, the lack of the details of who he was. Oh, that's such an angst for so many people out there. And this is a key point. You know, this is what I was saying up front now. I ain't got any kind of secret info for you folks. So if you think, you know, I'm doing some kind of show that's going to reveal something, no. You know, if you feel that's a waste of your time, move on, go and watch somebody else. I know KJ is doing a broadcast tonight as well, and KJ and Jeff got on really well. So I know there's other people covering this subject. I'm sure KJ will probably talk about a lot of the things similar I'm going to talk about. Yeah, that image, I felt it was very appropriate that guy in the circle, That's Jeff C. For all those people out there who want to know who he was, they want his identity, there you go. That's Jeff C. There's even a photo of him there for you, so you can scan his face and start doing your face analysis and doing your online searching of databases to try and find out who he was. All this obsession on who was he, what are the details? We need to know his name and number. He was not number 6. And he was not number 2 or number 1 either. That's a Prisoner reference if you didn't know. Go and watch the show, the series The Prisoner. Anyway, he was not inclined to put his personal information out there. He didn't need to. And this really comes back to the crux of the point and why I make mention of the fact that there will be some people out there that will try and turn this into some kind of thing that they can leverage in some manner. They either want to leverage people in a politicized agenda sense to steer them in one direction or another, or they want to try and exploit them by selling them some information or claiming that their book reveals all the answers. You want to save the world? Just buy my book. Yeah. The manipulators and the marketeers and the exploiters, as well as the shills and the agents, Brigade 77 and CSIC and all that lot, they'll all be out. Yeah. And the crew over in that Middle Eastern country that you dare not mention unless you want to get your channel banned and squished, etc. The 5 that should be called 6 Eyes, they'll all be out and about trying to exploit this situation and trying to make something out of it that it's not. And the main thing that concerned me after finding out about the situation was that the first thing they're going to try and do is turn it into a cult of personality and make it all about, well, we need to know who he was. We need to know all the details. Otherwise, we won't believe it, or we'll think that you're trying to trick us in some fashion. You're trying to deceive us by claiming that he's dead, whereas really he's on a beach in Tel Aviv or something like that. You notice there is a very deliberate switching the tables here. You just think back, you can look through Jeff's own work, which, as I said earlier, there is a legacy of fantastic content that he's put online. For those out there that are able to, I think possibly a lot of them have already been done, but if you're able to, download his videos, download all of his content if you can, and store it away, because at some point the channel might get shut down. How long that would take, I don't know, but yeah, at some point that channel might get shut down, in which case the content is no longer there. But you just go back and check his content, and he's pointed this out himself multiple times. When we hear of an event happening, like over Christmas, there was that big bang that happened in Nashville. An event happens, and along come the skeptics and the conspiracy theorists, whatever you want to call them, the people that generally congregate online like this and want to talk about these kind of events and ask questions. And often one of the first questions is, well, we need to know about the victims. We need the details of those alleged victims of the alleged event that happened. And if you don't give us the details, if you don't show us the video of them actually being killed, then we won't believe it. We just auto-hoax it and deny it and say the whole thing was a fake. It was all done by crisis actors. And this is an unfortunate effect of the limitation of this medium as an investigative tool. I've described it before as the Scooby-Doo hunt. A lot of this environment is manipulated to be like a Scooby-Doo hunt. You follow these little clues. You go and watch one video and they'll tell you how somebody on another channel has got all the secret info, but you can't see their channel because it's hidden. You can only find it if you go to a particular website or a different platform. All this kind of shit. People chasing little bits of clues, little cookie crumbs laid around, and they never get anywhere. They just go round and round in circles, and all their energy is expended, and nothing actually ever happens. Nothing is achieved. Jeff was very aware of all this kind of stuff, and he talked about it a lot. It was why I liked the work he did, because he was good at talking about the big picture, not just fixating on little details and losing the information because they were fixated on examining the bark of the tree rather than seeing the wood that's around them. So it's a common question when something happens. People want to know those kind of details because they're treating it like an investigation, which is, fair enough. That's what you should be doing. But that situation often turns into just a cult of personality, a witch hunt fixated on certain details. I'm not suggesting people shouldn't be asking questions. I'm not suggesting people shouldn't be wanting to know more about what's happened with this situation. I've got questions, but at the same time, I follow a process of, well, if the information isn't available to me, if I can't get access to that information, then I need to work with what is available to me. And even though this is somebody that I really appreciated, that I really liked, that I got on well with, that I've followed his work for literally years, nearly 8 years, yeah, I want to know. There's a lot of questions I would like answered, but it's not just about the event of his death. It's not just the situation of we don't know his actual details of who he was and his name and his face and all that kind of shit. Look at all the work he did. Look at that legacy of information and knowledge and insight. That is what they want to distract you from. And part of the trickery as well is if they can create some kind of narrative, and as it says in the image, conform to the control narrative or be a free thinker, if they can create some kind of narrative that rubbishes his character by them revealing who he was so that they can then claim that he was somebody who he didn't say he was, they could say he's somebody nefarious or he's a con man or he's this or that. That vacuum of information leaves a space for them to create a deliberately malicious and misdirecting narrative. So they can attempt to rubbish all the work he did by playing this game of making it a cult of personality. Oh, we won't believe it unless we've got all his details and we see exactly how he died and we want the autopsy report. We want everything. It's an unfortunate part of reality that there's some questions that you won't ever get the answers to. If you can't get over that, you're going to keep tripping over constantly. You're going to be on your knees on the floor because it's just part of reality. Sorry. I'm sorry you're disappointed. Yeah, reality wasn't meant to be fair. Yeah. There will be some questions that you won't be able to answer. And the main concern for me was that there will be a lot of people that will either, because they're not aware of the length of time of the work that he put in, the amount of effort and persistence that he put into doing this kind of content creation online to try and talk to people. And there'll be some for other agendized reasons that want to manipulate the story of the situation. I didn't know anything about Jeff other than his first name was Jeff, and even that I don't have any confirmation of. That's just what he said his name was. And his last name probably began with a C, but it also worked well as the Jeff censored, and that's why it became the Jeff C. I didn't know anything else about him, other than I did see a little video clip of his dog. This is going back quite a few years, and this is part of the long explanation of why a lot of this situation developed the way it did. Jeff really wanted to keep his privacy, and keeping his anonymity was part of keeping his privacy. He didn't want to show his face. That was his choice, because he knew it could have potential consequences for others around him. That's what he was mainly concerned about, rather than himself. It was things that had happened with other people around him in his life. Many years ago, he did a music video. Well, he did some music, put a little video with it, and he included some clips of him playing with his dog. And this got pounced upon by those online that wish to cause harm, whether it just be propagandized harm, as in putting out a message, or actual literal intent of physical harm. At the time, he was getting constant harassment. He was being gang stalked. People were trying to dox him, as in release his personal details online. And people have been making threats against his family and against his dogs. I think he had more than one dog. Or his family had dogs as well, I think. But I know they made threats against his dog. They basically said they were going to come and get his dog. And he's never told me the entire details of everything that happened around that time. I know he was keeping me at an arm's length, at a distance, because he didn't really know much about me at the time. We'd only been interacting for a short while before then, a couple of years maybe. And most of that was interaction via comments on his videos and that kind of exchange, you know. So he didn't exactly give me loads of details of what was going on. But I, just like many other people in this environment, I'm watching not just his channel, I'm watching other people's channels, and I'm watching those kind of combinations of when people do podcast shows like these, where we have multiple people on chatting. Yeah, I watched what he was doing. I watched the content he was creating. So I saw some of the interactions he was having with other people. And I could see that there was a deliberate effort to try and push him off the internet, and certainly to get him off YouTube. This is going back to just after Sandy Hook, because that was how I first encountered him. Maybe I should mention that as well. I forgot to mention that. So, yeah, my first interactions with Jeff was around the time of Sandy Hook. And at the time, I was looking for information about that situation, and his was one of the channels I found that had been covering it. And I got chatting to him from that point onwards. But as I say, I was at a bit of a distance. I saw some of the stuff that was happening. It seemed fairly obvious to me. I was quite confident in the assumption. It was an assumption, yeah, but I was quite confident in what I was seeing happening in front of me. That some people were very much out to get him offline, to get him off YouTube, certainly, preferably get him off the internet altogether, so that then they could further their gang stalking efforts against him. Because once they'd disconnected his methods of communication with most people, that's how they could really get into serious harassment of him and potentially prevent him from ever going back to doing what he was doing in the first place. But he persisted. Yeah. He had the balls to stand his ground and try and deal with the situation. He did go offline for a short period of time as part of that whole situation, because I know it was mentioned to me before that, you know, some people claim he went missing once before, so this situation that's happening now could be him just trying to play tricks again, and he's just gone missing, and all of a sudden he's going to pop back up again. So, I'm not denying the possibilities that something is different than the information I have available to me, but I do not have any good reason to doubt the information that was presented to me. There isn't really for me in that respect. I have questions about the situation of his death and what may happen from that point forward, as to whether it's confirmed to be natural, and those kind of questions. I'm not ignoring them or saying they don't have any validity to at least be asked and looked at. But the situation of him being found dead, and yeah, we're here now after that, I've got no reason to question that. It doesn't make any good sense to me to doubt the way the situation unfolded. But he was well aware that there were people who would cause him harm if they could find out who he was, find his personal details, find images of him that they could dox him with online. So I had no problem interacting with him under that knowledge, with that knowledge that he doesn't want to share his real details with me. That's okay. I dealt with the information and the communication we were having. And this is why I wanted to bring this up primarily. Obviously tonight we're talking about him in tribute and not as a eulogy. I said in some of the messages I sent out to people, so it's not my place to do a eulogy. I don't think that would be right. But in a way, a lot of what I feel needs to happen at the moment, certainly in this online community. I know there's lots of people who don't like that word, let alone the idea that there's some kind of community happening here. But in this community, these things need to be talked about. You need to, if you're going to be awake, then you need to have the wake. Yeah, as in that old version, the old definition of the word for awake, when you would get together and celebrate somebody's life after they'd passed and talk about what they did, what they achieved. That legacy of work that he's left for everyone. And not just in his own content in the sense of he was the one with all the answers. Like most of us always keep saying to people on these broadcasts that we do, we don't have all the answers. You need to look into things for yourself. Yeah, but his content was not just about him reciting information. He was trying to help people learn to do it for themselves. This is why in the subtitle tonight for this episode, because I didn't want to just write for Jeff or a podcast about Jeff or something like that, but I put something that we had talked about a few times in different ways, maybe not said it in this manner directly, in this kind of phrase, but we were certainly talking about this concept many times when we were chatting with each other. Each a warrior. This is a principle I'm trying to follow with what I do here, with the content I put out. I'm not trying to create a body of work that people can just reference like a reference book in a library. They can go, oh yes, and then this happened, and then that was said, and then this was done, and that was the result. No, I'm trying to approach this from a point of view of helping people develop the philosophical and spiritual tools, because it does really come down to your spiritual energy, the philosophical and spiritual tools for you to be able to do this for yourself. Because while we're still in a situation of the majority of people being indoctrinated and entrained into a system that relies on a hierarchical structure with figures of authority that hand out the orders, and then a bunch of lowly peons that carry out those orders, then we will forever be subjected to the same cycles of misery that keep happening again and again and again. In other words, all those situations of a supposed master handing out orders, which I'm sure, I know the people coming to listen now, the people in the chat are well aware of all this. And for a lot of the public, they're now starting to become aware of it. This year has been a crucible, a baptism by fire for this realization for many of the public. But while you're still relying on leaders who are coming onto the media to tell you, oh, just wear a mask. No, don't question it. Just put the mask on. Don't question what we're telling you. Just do as you're told. That is that system of authority laid bare. And for many people, they're starting to realize that they can no longer look to those leaders, those authority figures, and expect any kind of truth or justice, because there is none in what they are doing and the system that they are perpetuating. The only way you will get truth and justice back again is by doing the inner work and bringing that power, bringing that authority back to yourself. Stop looking to a warrior outside of you, an external warrior, to be your protector, your leader. Each a warrior. And part of that was learning things like, how does propaganda work? How does psychology work in ways that it's utilized in that propaganda? How can we apply philosophical tools, things such as the trivium and the list of philosophical fallacies that will help you think more clearly. The philosophical fallacies will help you think more clearly. That's a Freudian slip, like, no, definitely. But things like the trivium and the use of simple principles like Occam's razor, so that when the media, when these supposed authority figures are making their pronouncements and diktats from the podium via the media that you are being subjected to and saturated with, you can read that, you can listen to that, you can watch their presentation, and you can pull it apart for yourself. So all their deliberate, manipulative, psychological attacks and psychic attacks that they are trying to make against you are just bouncing off your armor, because you're no longer reliant on an external warrior to stand in between you and the stream of bullshit. You've got your own shield. You've got your own sword. And this is why, through conversation with Jeff, it was one of the things that inspired me to the title and the concept of these current broadcasts, the Sol Excalibre. I'll put a link in the chat to a video that I did back in 2016. It was just Jeff and myself in conversation. At the time, this was not that long after some of the crazy silliness that was happening on YouTube. There was one particular event which Jeff does mention in the discussion as we go, in the Trans-Asia air crash, that created a situation where there was just a whole lot of what can only be called auto-hoaxing that began happening. And basically people looking at the information and the video and news coverage, the media coverage, all the usual gambit of the investigative process of the conspiracy theorists, all that, looking at the stuff, looking at the information about that crash. And yet there were still people who persisted with this idea that it was all CGI, it was all a hoax, it was all faked using crisis actors, and they were doing it deliberately just to mess with us people online. And that was combined with a lot of the harassment that was happening for Jeff at the time. So it was around that time he took a break and walked away from things for a bit. But I didn't want to see him getting pushed off YouTube. So I took the opportunity. I thought, I know this might sound a bit condescending, but I felt like I needed to give him a bit of encouragement, because he'd been doing, like he does, doing his usual passionate examination of the media information, being a media critic and analyst. And there was just this wave of these people coming forward just shouting hoax, hoax, hoax constantly, and all this pressure against him to try and get him off the internet, get him off YouTube. So I felt like, well, in effect, give him a bit of friendly encouragement. I was wanting to do something like a new show, a new format. The ideas were just bubbling away in my head at the time, and I thought, this is a perfect opportunity. I'll invite Jeff, we'll have a chat, we'll just talk about stuff, and it'll, give him an opportunity to say things, whatever he wants to say. We can talk about why he was doing this kind of content production and stuff like that, why he was interested in doing it, what was his motivations. And I thought it would give him the opportunity to sort of get that regrounding. He'd feel that, he's not, I know this might sound wrong saying this at the moment, but I didn't want him to feel like he was being wrong in what he was doing, because that's what he was being subjected to. This constant harassment of negativity of, oh, you're just some guy ranting online, you don't know anything, you're crazy, you know nothing. all the usual kind of negative manipulation that the shitheads out there like to try and use. Yeah. And the agencies know full well what they're doing when they apply certain psychological methods deliberately with that kind of purpose in mind. They will attack you continuously with that kind of negativity. In the 90s, they used to call it negging, when you'd point out a fault with somebody, but then you'd try and buddy up to them afterwards, as if I must be a real friend because I'll point out your negative things. That makes me more like I'm a genuine friend to you, doesn't it? It's just their way of getting the foot in the door. But yeah, I thought, let's just have a chat. And I was trying to come up with a name to call this new show idea that I was having. And I came up with this concept of the Excalibre, because I'm somewhat into etymology of words. I think language is very important. The definition and manipulation of language that they've been doing for a while now, these things are vitally important to what we're looking at. Anyway, but because of my interest in that sense, I was thinking about the word Excalibre, because calibre is a way of measuring something. It's like a gauge of quality, a measurement of quality. So when you say somebody has a high caliber, you mean they have a high standard, a high ability, a high skill level at what they do. They produce a high standard of work. And what I was trying to say with that concept of the Excalibre was that there are some things that are beyond measure. The looks, the light, the truth. The truth is beyond measure. It is Excalibre. Some people might find that a bit contradictory because they think, the truth is super shiny. Of course, it's got a high caliber. It's the highest caliber of anything. It's the truth. It's beyond our measure. It's Excalibre. Anyway, ranting into my own stuff, talking about my own stuff. But I thought that would be a good opportunity to chat with Jeff. So if you're interested, it's back from 2016. I did just put the link in the side chat. It is a couple of hours long. So, like what I was talking about earlier, for all those people who are stuck in that short attention span problem, you might struggle a bit. But if you're here because you've seen that name and you think, I like Jeff, I followed his channel, I want to know what's going on, I'm interested, please go and listen to that. Make the time to listen to it, because I'm hoping it will help remind people that this is not a cult of personality. And Jeff, he would have hated that. The idea of people turning him into some kind of hero figure. No. He would have hated that. Make my lighter work. Come on, Jeff. Make my lighter work. Wake your ass up. Thank you. No, he would have hated that. He was not about being a hero. So, if you listen to that video, listen to that conversation where he explains his feelings, his motivations, his passion for why he was doing what he was doing. I think I should play some music or something for 5 minutes. I know what I'll play. This is a perfect opportunity. Not exactly music, but it will be a good opportunity to play a video that Camille uploaded over the weekend after we'd found out about the situation. And I think this was an absolutely perfect clip of some of what Jeff said recently. Hopefully it makes the point. Hang on. Where's my play button?
Privacy was nice. you know, your rights were nice, but nah, now we're in a new normal now, new world that we're in.
Because there's never been sickness before. We've always all been healthy, and there's never been anything to worry about. This is a whole new scary thing.
Well, you know,
yeah.
great shout out to Really Graceful, but she put out a great video last week, which I shared on my show, and she said people are so obsessed and fear of dying when they forget that living is the whole purpose, that we're here. I mean,
Yep.
You know, like all these people that are so terrified that somehow they're gonna die are missing the whole point. It's like you're not living, you're giving up your life, right?
Yeah.
And it's like this, you are giving up your life. If you're not breathing free, if you're able to walk down the street and, you know, or go see your family, go be with your dying loved one before they pass away, or have that turkey dinner, or, you know, just get together and have a party. What are you doing, right? Because like you may not be here tomorrow.
Exactly. And nobody's promised tomorrow. This is such craziness.
Yeah, and they have taken all of this time away, all of us, all this beautiful life that that's the purpose of us all being here. So it's very evil, and it's very scary where it's all going.
Helps if I unmute myself. Yeah, so there you heard it. He said it himself not too long ago, in conversation with Camille, who her channel is Please Stop the Ride. Please go and check out her channel if you haven't seen it before. And Really Graceful's channel as well. I know Jeff mentions it in that little clip. But these are people who are consistently putting out good content. And we come back to the question of the cult of personality. There's a lot of manipulation that is carried out by trying to get people to fixate on the personality rather than the information. Yeah, part of the reason why I started putting my face on camera, because back in the day I used to do similar like Jeff did. I would never show my face. I'd just show an avatar, or I'd show a news article or a video clip that I was talking about over the top of. But I realized through interaction with people in the chat and in this environment in general, that for a lot of people out there, they felt more of a disconnect when they were only hearing the audio. You know, not everyone is an audio learner, or, you know, for many people, they are a visual learner. And that doesn't mean just reading text. They need to see a visual element to help them in their learning process. So they need to see your face. They need to see your facial expressions. Body language as well is somewhat important, though I try to like only show my face really, because, you know, there ain't exactly anything to see. It's just me talking on a camera. I deliberately don't do all the fancy video stuff like a lot of content producers do. I haven't got the time and patience to do it, and I prefer a punk attitude. It's a web camera, it's a headset, boom, done, go. That was to help get the point across to everybody out there that you can do this fairly readily. It's not that expensive. Yes, you need a little bit of equipment and an internet connection, but it's not that expensive. Yeah, you're talking small change of money really, and you can get yourself going and you can start making your own content. You know, you don't have to be the super flashy content producer. You don't have to compete with those people that are all just about vanity and image. That image is part of the framing and manipulation of stuff. You don't have to do that kind of content if you don't want to. Yeah, it's good that people do quality content like that, because they help reach a lot further into the audience kind of thing. People like me tend to be out on the fringes because of the fact that I don't do all that stuff. I don't appeal to the young demographic, because you don't have constant jump cuts and different camera angles and flashy graphics and all that shit. No, it's just me talking on a camera. And for a lot of people, they find that difficult to focus and concentrate on, so they get bored and wander off. Yeah. And I have a habit of talking in long, winding pathways. Yeah. I used to make a deliberate thing of that. I'd do little long winding journeys to bring it back to where you started from. But yeah, anyway, I'm talking about myself again. I think that clip makes an absolutely perfect point that is foundational to what Jeff was doing. I know this from the years of interaction I had with him. I didn't need to know his real name. I saw the fruits that he produced. That was good enough for me, yeah? Dealing with that information. Talking to him about the content rather than just talking to him about, well, who are you, mate? Yeah, this is part of the deception process that this system relies on and is endemic in this environment, because most people are entrained into following figures of authority or deferring to somebody that they have been told is a figure of authority or an expert in a subject. You know, I could mention Neil Ferguson at the moment. He's a supposed expert, and look at all the shit that he's caused. And yet people still keep referring to him. Yeah. If we can't get past that point, we still keep tripping over the same cyclical problems again and again. They may have a slightly different clothing on, a slightly different set decoration, but it's the same show that's being trotted out every time, the same circus every time. Jeff was aware of that. He realised that. And it was part of that realization that he was trying to get across to people to help them help themselves. Yeah, I know it's classic cliche time, but to try and help people help themselves, better wake your ass up. Yeah, he knew, like it says in the clip. Thanks to Camille for finding that, remembering that, and uploading it. One of the key things that they want to keep you in mind of is that it's a constant disaster. Everything's disappearing. You should just hide under your stairs and never go out again. It's all the end of the world. Oh, there's no point living anymore because everything's so terrible. And I think most people know this now and have done for at least a couple of generations. When you watch the news, what you're presented with is misery and chaos, war and strife, just all the bad shit in life. You know, all the bad shit gets concentrated into a 15-minute or 30-minute news presentation. And it's like, there you go, folks. Go and be depressed for the rest of your day because we just took a big dump in your brain. Yeah, he realised that. That's why he's making that point of, if this environment, if this kind of information gets to you to the point where you lose your joy in life, then stop doing it. Absolutely, at least take a break from it. If not, you know, if you feel you can't deal with it at all, then don't do it at all. Because it is like dealing with a toxin. This is a point we talk about in the conversation I had with him from 2016, you know, in the reality chat Excalibre episode that we did. It is like absorbing a toxin. If you don't have the alchemy process in yourself, if you don't have that spiritual, energetic alchemy enabled, then you are going to constantly just be absorbing that toxin until it causes you stress, and that leads to illness and potentially worse. So you need to take a break from putting yourself through that process. If you can build up the strength to deal with it, and that is when we come back to, he wouldn't see himself as a hero. He certainly wouldn't see himself as a leader I think I'm confident in saying that from all the years of interacting with him. But he knew that he had more strength in that respect than a lot of other people. He could deal with sifting through all that shit to break it apart and look for the information and look for the clues that lead to the agendas and pointing at that kind of stuff for people to help them see it. He could deal with it, so he did, because he knew it was the right thing to do. It wasn't because he was getting tons of money for it. Most of the time he wasn't. The majority of the time he got chased off YouTube. So for all those people out there who think, oh, he's just doing it for the money, you know, that's one of the common arguments that gets chucked out there. So you obviously didn't, you know, look at what he was doing then, did you, mate? Because there's no way he was earning tons of money out of what he was doing. He'd be lucky to get, you know, a bit of change out of it, a bit of pocket money, as we would say. Yeah. But all of these things, I feel, combine into this situation where, unfortunately, it may be just what it looks like. These things happen. He knew that. He makes that statement in that clip. Nobody's promised tomorrow. So maybe that was a little bit premonition, and like a premonition for him. Don't know, possibly. And I'm not discounting possibilities of something untoward happening or something, you know, being done to him. I know there's technology out there that can do very similar things, if not outright what the situation was, if he did suffer an aneurysm or something similar. He'd mentioned over the years that he had migraines, not just recently. I know he mentioned it not so long ago that he had quite a severe migraine. He had a couple of days break from doing stuff. I remember him mentioning it like only a few weeks ago. But he has also he had also mentioned over the years that it's something that he suffered from for as long as he's talked about it. You know, so that gave me an impression that it's something that he's had all his life. He made the point that it would come and go. He'd get periods, you know, it'd be a few days or a week or something, and he'd have these migraines, and then it'd fade away and it wouldn't, you know, bother him. And I know he mentioned not so long ago that he hasn't had it that bad for many years, but recently it had become that bad. And yeah, there is technology that can do that kind of thing, but you have to take into consideration that through his own statements, he had a history of that kind of problem. There was something that gave him those migraines, you know, something in his biology maybe, or something. Yeah. But it's not denying the possibilities that something else might have happened. But even if, let's speculate about some of the more obvious questions that will stand out. Yes, something could have been done to him. Yeah, that is a possibility. And yes, he could have just disappeared, as in run away, you know, left. I'm not denying that. I just find it very, very, very unlikely, because the chain of events just doesn't add up. The chain of evidence and information doesn't add up to that. And also, it's not consistent with his character. It's not consistent with his track record. Somebody who got almost constant harassment and went through some periods, this is going back a few years, but went through some periods of quite severe harassment online and in real life. And he kept coming back. He kept persisting. YouTube, Google would shut his channels down. He'd start up a new channel. And I know I had this chat with him a couple of times years ago, where you know, he was obviously pissed off. He was fed up. He was tired of pushing. And we'd have a general conversation, and I'd make suggestions to him about how he could try doing things a little bit differently, so hopefully he could avoid the algorithm or avoid the wrath of the YouTube censor brigade. Because it was, from one of our conversations, I think, was why he created the fake news report. And, yeah, if you remember that little channel where he would do a somewhat satirical, comedic presentation of the information. And I know he'd hoped that by doing it as comedy, or presenting it as comedy, hopefully the algorithm would leave him alone because it would register as comedy on the tags and whatever. You know, the search terms had come up as comedy and satire and things like that. You know, YouTube being what YouTube is, that didn't exactly last very long. It worked for a while, but they soon caught up and, you know, shut it down as well. So the suggestion that he could have just run away or faked his death and all this kind of shit, so that is completely inconsistent with his character and his track record. This guy got knocked down again and again and again, and he kept getting back up. So to suggest that he's run away because he can't deal with shit anymore, or he just wants to give up and retire or something, he wouldn't have done it like this. No way. No fucking way. And like I say, the chain of information and the evidence about how the situation played out, that would not have been easy to fake or set up or concoct in some fashion. So that the whole thing just doesn't add up. No, sorry, he hasn't just run away and given up. That, again, is a classic psychological manipulation that people are attempting to steer you towards character assassination, rubbishing him as a personality so that you will then dismiss all of the work that he's done over the years. No. If he was going to stop, he would have told people. He had far more consideration and respect for people than to just run away. He wouldn't have done that. He wasn't a coward. So that leaves really the possibility that either it is what it is, which has the higher probability, I think, or he could have been attacked in some fashion. I find that a bit difficult as well, because it's counterproductive to the agency's agendas. Because look at the outpouring after the news came out. Yeah, the reaction proves it. So to suggest that it would benefit the controllers, the manipulators, to suggest that they would have, to put it crudely, they would have offed him because he was too much trouble, or he was pressing the wrong buttons, or causing, you know, people to think a bit too much. You better wake your ass up. Again, it doesn't add up because of his consistency and his track record. He'd been doing exactly the same thing for years. I mean, in the sense of actually pushing buttons and making the system go, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, he got to the stage of being used as a reference in mainstream media articles. When the mainstream media was being used in its usual fashion of trying to, again, character assassinate and rubbish the people online by calling them all crazy conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hatters and all the usual kind of manipulation that they attempt to do, Jeff was referenced as one of those people online that's supposedly talking crazy shit. Why? Because he was putting information out that was actually registering with people, and they were going, hang on, he's fucking right about that. Yeah. It was realizing and revealing for people things that were going on, information about events that were happening at the time. You know, I'm thinking back to like Sandy Hook again, because I think that it was not long after that where he got included in like a list of the naughty people online that, you know, the public shouldn't be allowed to listen to. You know, the mainstream media wants to make you think you're not allowed to listen to other people, only the ones they tell you you're allowed to listen to. So again, it's sort of like, well, it doesn't exactly serve their agenda, does it? Because if anything now, and I don't really want to use this word, I can't really think of another word similarly to replace it though, but they have in effect martyred him. If they did kill him off, they've martyred him. Because, as I say, look at the outpouring. Look at the effect it's having of bringing people together. Yeah, in this situation where they actively want to split people up, they actively want to fragment any grouping or organizing of people in this online environment. Why would they do something that is doing actually completely the opposite? It's rallying people together. It doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of their agendas. It might make sense as a move of just purely vindictive nature, as in because he's pissed somebody off or he's annoyed some intelligence agent somewhere to such a degree that they put a hit out on him. Yeah, that's getting a bit desperate now. We're starting to grasp at straws of possibility. Yeah, you could just as easily say he smirked at somebody in the street who happened to be the cousin of a mafia boss, so they got him a hit out on him and shit like that. How far are we going to scrape to try and come up with some kind of excuse? We've got to be aware of the biases that we ourselves can bring to these questions. You may want to see a conspiracy when there is none. And I know for a lot of people out there, they might think, oh, well, Cookie's saying stuff like, what the fuck's going on here? He's always talking about conspiracies. But that's because they like to play a projection game where they claim that I do something in a particular way, whereas really it's just their interpretation of what I'm doing. Again, that's part of character assassination. They try to project onto you some kind of bad behavior that they can then attack you for. So I know they did this a lot to Jeff as well, trying to claim that Jeff thinks he's always right or that he's a narcissist. That's a classic one of recent years. You know, anyone who does this kind of content online is labeled a narcissist, so that then all their work can be dismissed. Character assassination bullshit. But he knew about all this stuff, and he would talk about it often enough that I don't think there was anything he's been doing recently that stood out as being all of a sudden he's found some super amazing bit of information, or he's put together this little documentary or something that reveals so much stuff that the agencies felt they had to now come along and get rid of him. Again, it doesn't match the situation. It doesn't add up. It's a very, very, very low probability. It would be very difficult for that situation to be set up in that kind of fashion. Unfortunately, it keeps coming back round to it is most likely what it is. It is unfortunately just the way the situation has played out. If there was something, a long-term ailment or problem that he'd been, able to cope with in the past, but now it had reached a stage where it built up to such a point that it was too much for him, too much for his body to cope with. I know he wasn't an unfit guy, as far as, like I say, I know in general, because I didn't know more details than most anybody else. I think that's really the one main point I want to keep banging on about, keep, putting that flag up and trying to point at it as much as I can. I really, really appreciated the work he did, and I think he's left an amazing legacy of not just information, not just his video content and his comment posts and his Twitter posts and all that kind of stuff. It's the way he influenced people, the way he helped people. that is far more and far beyond just the fixating on the kind of personality effect of how did he actually die. It's a bit like people, and I use a bit of an analogy here. I'm not trying to suggest Jeff was like Elvis, but to use a kind of Elvis analogy, it's like people obsessing with being able to see the photographs of him dead on the toilet just because they don't want to believe that he's dead, and they forget about all the fantastic work, all the fantastic music that he'd created and put out there. Now all they're fixated on is wanting to know the gory details. That's like the virtual Colosseum all over again. People want to see the blood and the guts. They want to see the nastiness. They want to see the negativity. They want to be able to try and debase everything so that then we're back to the status quo and everybody gives up on trying to pursue the truth. So I was going to ask in the chat, while you're all typing away, is just believing and knowing are different things, and a catch, yes, they are, most definitely. Do you know that you believe, or do you believe that you know? But I was going to ask in the chat, put in your favourite quote from Jeff. I think my favourite is probably "You better wake your ass up," but I also like the "shove it up your cake hole." Simply because it's like a mixed metaphor, and I don't know whether he did it subconsciously, if he was mixing the metaphor subconsciously, or whether he's doing it deliberately, because, you know, your cake hole is your mouth, but he always said shove it up your cake hole, which makes you, you know, the connotations of that is, well, the only hole that's going upwards is not your mouth, so what is he talking about? Shove it up your cake hole. The Pale Horse, can I play his Jeff's intro? I possibly, if I can find a video with it on, yeah, I can do. Talk amongst yourselves. Pete, sorry, I've been ranting for like an hour. If you want to join in, if you got anything to say, join in. But
I'm still here. Good evening, everybody. Hello. And yeah, it's sad news indeed, isn't it?
Yep.
Jeff was a warrior, and he will be truly missed. But yeah, the focus and service to others, his passion, and it's ultimately love, isn't it? Because we do this. I love doing this in the sense I do it. I like to do it. It's not something I get paid for. I don't want to be paid for this. It's truth. It's a higher vibration. It's different. Look at it differently. I'm not looking for, you know, anything other than just spreading that. That's it. And if you all add into it, and, you know, the groups we get together and things like that as we grow, and as we have been growing, we just need to keep shining our light there, you know. And it's never been about money. It's just getting into correct alignment with yourself and do the work on yourself as well, which we talk about. But yeah,
the greatest wealth is not money. It's not financial.
No, it's that, you know. And again, that work on yourself, so important now for people to get into that. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. Remember that. You know, people forget this stuff. It's all been hidden, of course, and messed up in the past, and stuff we'll get more into next year as we go forward with these, going into 2021, and the Great Reset being the Great Awakening. Really, yeah. Maybe it is. That's what wake everybody up. That's the Great Awakening. I thought that.
Something I think he was very aware of, even though he didn't really talk that much about the kind of spiritual stuff. You know, he was mainly focused on the media. But I know he was aware of that kind of thing. And even though we had not exactly a difference, you know, we disagreed slightly on some of the aspects of it. But I think he agreed with that kind of interpretation. Whatever we label it, there is something happening that is, you know, it helps to call it something like the Great Awakening, because it's difficult to describe it in other words. You know, there is a process that more and more of the population is starting to connect to, or to realize for themselves, or realize that they've already begun the process. Yeah. And all the events that have been happening for the last few years seem to be intertwined into that event, into that effect that is taking place. And the Great Reset is like the corporate beast system. I know Jeff used to like to refer to it as the beast system, sort of attaching itself like the parasite to that flow of energy. Yeah, they were sticking their branding on it. Like they come along and they found something wonderful in nature, and they go, "Oh yeah, stick our brand on that. We can sell that for $1." Yeah, I know he was aware of, very aware of that kind of process.
Yeah, but again, it's the truth, and presenting the truth upsets people. It brings out, the worst in those who don't want to admit that that is the truth. It brings out the demons in them. And as you said, he suffered a lot of attacks, and we mentioned it over the years, didn't we? Over the years, we've been doing these chats and stuff, and it was ongoing and got quite intense, as you mentioned a few years ago. But he came back, and like I say, just so shocked myself to hear the news on Boxing Day when I heard it. Just thought, wow. It was a bit when, heard of a few others passing. John Harris was, I don't know if anyone's heard of John Harris, but he was someone a few years ago who did quite a bit to get people to kind of see the truth of certain things about their own sovereignty and their spirituality, stuff like that. And we've lost a few, but we keep going. We just keep going, and as you know, and energy never dies. Energy transmutes and changes. It's just you are energy. You have an energy field. It is there. It is measurable. You can even feel it with your own hands if you tune yourself up enough. So again, stuff they've hidden, knowledge, stuff that we should be learning now about ourselves and how to heal each other. It's so important now moving forward, because they're going to do all they can to make it difficult. And we just keep going, like I say.
And I remember not so long ago having a conversation with somebody. As far as I know, she won't mind me mentioning it, but I never thought to ask beforehand. But it was just at one point I happened to say, sort of like in conversation, that in this environment, something else that is often not realized by a lot of people especially when they first start coming to look at this kind of information, or when they're first beginning their process and they're tumbling down that, the classic rabbit hole kind of effect, and they do, one realization leads to another and leads to another and leads to another. And we've got this environment where there's more and more people now wanting to ask questions like that, wanting to learn about things like that.
Yeah.
So inevitably, over a passage of time, over the course of time, some people who are the content creators, the people that are putting out a lot of these videos, some of them are going to fall by the wayside. The way I described it, again, I reference people, please go and watch that conversation I had with Jeff back in 2016, because we did sort of talk about this kind of thing. It is a psychological battlefield. The media that we're often trying to interpret and talk about what's being put out in the media, the way the media is used by the system, the beast system, to manipulate their populations and steer people and all that kind of shit. That realization, most people get to that point, they're tumbling down the rabbit hole, they're finding all this stuff, this one layer of the deception is falling away after another. But as we're all going through those processes, you're going to encounter people that you think, they're doing great work, I love what they're doing, I'm learning loads of stuff from the content they're putting out, but then they disappear for whatever reason. And if what we're experiencing in terms of the media is like a battlefield, it's psychological, but it's still a battlefield. 77th Brigade, this is exactly what they were created to do. Then in the same fashion that on a battlefield you would see people fall, then you're going to see that happen here as well. And if you're not, I don't want to say prepared, because that sounds a bit condescending. I'm not saying people should not feel grieved and emotional about this situation, not at all. but you do that while you're still moving. You grieve while you're marching. You grieve while you're standing back up on that battlefield.
Yeah, don't let them knock you down with it, because that's what also that it happens to people, where they get so they're so shocked by the news. It just they
I've
do
seen
grieving process, and it is quite harsh. But you just got to you've got to if you are going through that, then you will come out of it. You do come out, but don't let it put you off the truth, because it's the message, and the message Jeff was giving and others give out. It's just that it's the place we're all going to. It's all being revealed to us now, right in front of our eyes this year, more than ever. And as we go into 2021, so the same. And be interesting to see what happens on January the 6th in the US. That's what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Going on there.
After we had the big pop on Christmas Day in Nashville.
It's I'd like to say we've had this, like I say, this rise of it. I mean, I did see that a little bit back in 2009 and 10, and I think that was more people coming online and getting computers and looking at stuff over a few years, and then realizing there's lots of stuff happening, and it seemed to be a big boom of stuff, especially in this part of the world. And now we see it again, and this event, as we said in March, would wake a lot of people up. You can see it now. And all the agendas coming out, coming into fruition, like Agenda 21 from the UN, and just look at their horrific record of self-sustainability and, forced abortions and things like that. Just go and look at Henry Kissinger. Just look at these freaks, and just go and check out these type of characters and see what they've been actually doing to us already. By the way, this is stuff they've been doing, and the plans for stuff that is going to, the vaccine stuff is not looking great, and they're trying to really push that. So we just keep doing what we're doing, keep saying what we say.
Right, should I play this intro?
Go on. Yes, go on. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, so just what I wanted to do was talk about it for exactly the reasons like you said, because that's what I was going to mention. I have seen it here and there in comments, and I'm not saying people are wrong for doing this, but people posting things like, how are we going to carry on without Jeff? And it does make me a little bit dubious, because I'm like, hey, were you actually really listening to him? Because this is the kind of exact situation that he was trying to point out. And like what I was trying to say earlier, he would not see himself as a hero or a leader. He wasn't there to be your leader. So there's just this idea of, the truth movement's over because Jeff's gone, or how do we carry on now that he's gone, and things like that. So, well, the one thing he'd want you to do is to carry on.
Absolutely.
And he wouldn't want you to stop living. Again, reference that clip from Camille. Now, this is why I thought I wanted to do it this way, so that we can just talk about the situation, because for a lot of people, even though, please be aware that there are those people without good intentions that turn up in your chat and just try and shit on what you're doing, because that's part of their little game, or their manipulation if they're working for an agency or whatever. Brigade 77 will be out and about, folks. Don't be naive to their presence. They will try and do that kind of shit, but really what it's about is the connections of people. And as I said earlier, I know some people don't like the word community because they think it equals communism and all that kind of shit, but there is a community of people that interact in this environment, and the ones I've found to be the best at what they do, they're not concerned with knowing the absolute details of who you are. They don't need to know your full personal name and your social security number or your national insurance number if you're here in the UK or whatever. They don't need that information. They look at the work you do, and they look at how you interact with everybody else. That's what I do. I look at the content of what you produce, the content of your character. If all you do is spout crap, then what are you? You're a big pile of crap, spouting more crap. I don't need more shit in my life, thanks. There's enough from the system itself.
Boris Johnson, in particular.
I know it might sound a bit cliched and cheesy and corny and blah, 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 but there was a community of people that were very influenced or inspired or uplifted by the work that Jeff did. So I thought it was something to do, to just talk about it in this kind of fashion, so people had the opportunity to, let it out, to go through parts of the grieving process.
Yeah.
This is not a solution to your grieving process, but hopefully it will help. Yeah, let's play this while I'm yakking. Find the right tab. This is Jeff's intro that he's been using for the past, couple of years, I think now, at least a year plus. Yeah, that's a couple of years at least. I'll shut up and let it play. I might need to, do I need to fast forward it a bit? No. Or is that the advert? Oh, hang on. Has he left the advert on at the beginning? I'm going to have to check it first because I don't want to play that advert crap.
No idea, actually. I'm going to dig that up because I'm going to say waxing.
That's not the intro. That's the intro. That's what I wanted. It is right at the beginning then. You dummy, you should have just let it play. Right, I'll shut up and let it play.
I don't really consider it gear.
No, I'm not going to let their advert play. I know Jeff was showing it for good reason, but I'm not going to repeat their advertisements when there's no need to at the moment. Thank you to everyone in the chat. I was just scrolling down a bit. I haven't been able to scroll all the way back up the chat because of the way StreamYard works. It only keeps a certain amount of the cache. But just scrolling back a bit. Thanks to everyone joining in the chat. I thought it was highly appropriate to show some of the comments while we were listening to the intro. So this is, you can't say he didn't do a good job. Yeah, this is the effect he had on this environment.
Yeah, it's a horrible agenda, is it not? And it's horrible when you see it like played like that. And you realize, that there's that eugenics thing. People don't know what we're talking about. I hope you do. Eugenics.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically just, reduction of population, sterilize the population is one way they're doing it. And I've been doing that for quite some time. And it's not a great thing to look at, is it? But it's what we have to deal with. We have to shine our light there and still remind people, that's the direction it's going. But the Great Reset, as I mentioned earlier, that's the big one they're going to push for next year, and that is maybe the Great Awakening. Maybe it's not verses. I said it was verses last week, but maybe that is the Great Awakening. Maybe they have to see this crazy shit really play out to its end.
Yep.
In that
Unfortunately,
way,
they are so mired into, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but they're so mired into the matrix that they rebel against being released. Because, I've described it this way many times in the past. It is like you're destroying their world.
Yeah.
I don't know. In some ways, that is literally what is happening because of the way they're changing the infrastructure of society and all that kind of stuff. But it's more the psychological and spiritual damage that it does to people.
Yeah.
And they're, so resistant. They're so stuck in that little denial bubble that we've ended up the situation where we are now. And it will keep getting steadily worse until more and more people wake up.
Yeah.
So it's an unfortunate sort of natural process that's occurring. Yeah, the more they press down, the more the stuff gets squeezed out the sides. All that kind of analogy and metaphor.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the chat to that last podcast that was from Jeff's channel. I think that was the last long podcast he did, the last Monday Madness. I did just have a quick look on his channel again, just to check. Yeah, because that was the one I went back to check on when he didn't appear on last Monday on the 21st. Because that was when it shows how crap I am at this kind of stuff. That was when it first occurred to me. It's like, I haven't seen Jeff around for doing his shows. There was no Monday Madness on. And that's what made me wonder. I thought maybe he was just taking the break for the Christmas holidays, And that's the way it goes sometimes, folks. You say hello to someone, you have a quick chat to them, and the next day you find out they died after, when they've gone home or something.
Yeah.
That's why, you can't live with an expectation that your tomorrow is guaranteed. It's not. So you got to keep living all the time. Don't keep putting it off. Yeah,
and do that work and that focus on yourself, and that's important at the moment, because again, everyone crazy or trying to get everyone crazy, and it's stuff that, like I say, is coming more out now. People are beginning to feel it in themselves as well as we move forward throughout this year. Feeling a change of the feeling, the energy in themselves, whatever. That's happening more and more, and it'll keep rising. And that's why they're doing what they're doing. That's what I said right from the get-go. and these are plans over a long, long time. But certainly this particular one has been, you know, it's planned, as we said, and very, you know, as we have a society now being able to cope with the kind of situation we've got at the moment, but not really for short term. Yes, not long term. And next year is the crux point of where they're going to lead us. Like I say, to accept the reset, and then as we wake up and wake up and wake up more. Yeah, be interesting to see how Klaus Schwab.
Well, we might.
Yeah,
I might have a message from him somewhere. Hang on, let me see if I can find it.
Someone online the other day was calling him the Antichrist. You know, he's the. There's plenty of them, as we said before. I mentioned it before we come on, but as we said, there's plenty of them. There's a lot of them, actually. Where do you want to start?
This is Klaus's Great Reset. Not only is the world going to be changed, but he's going to get hair. Can you guess where he got his hair from?
Yeah, because I think he's the secret father of Greta. I think.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah,
frightening.
It's scary, isn't it? Well, it could be, you know, they move in these weird circles, these freaks.
Just in case people don't know, in one of his little speeches that he did when he was talking about the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and he sat in this chair and he's sort of talking like he's a Bond villain. You know, it really was like the monologue from the Bond villain of how he's going to take over the world. And at one point, he makes mention of how if we don't do all the things he's suggesting, we're going to end up in a terrible situation, and it's frightening. And it's just the way he says frightening. I always get this image of the classic Nosferatu character, you know, the old black and white movies vampire, because he's got the bald head and everything.
Yeah.
And I find myself keep doing the kind of hand gesture like the old Nosferatu. It's like, it's frightening. Yeah. That is the the face of the architects of change that are attempting to forcibly rebuild society around us. You know, they're trying to force people into going along with these suggestions that he is making, but obviously also others as well. You know? Yeah.
And we head to next year, and this is where it's all going to get more heated up.
Agenda 21 was keyed to primarily begin or to sort of key in its foundational principles by the year 2021. And then obviously there's other things for further down the line, and there's like the 2030 and whatever. Now as well, I think there's a 2040 and 2050 agenda as well has been added to the list.
Which they just added on little sub bits, aren't they? They add into the 100-year plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and these are the kind of subjects that Jeff was often trying to help people realize. That try and, you know, lift your head up out of that Colosseum effect of the general media that we're presented with day after day. We're saturated with deliberately on purpose now. You know, they try and put these messages in front of you as much as they can, which is why we're now seeing corporate advertisements on the, I was going to say the television, but it's more than just the television now, isn't it? It's all over the internet, where they've included the now politically correct newspeak requirements of social distancing and mask wearing and hand washing and all this crap that they're trying to bring in. Yeah. They're now in, you know, all the corporate names are coming forward and say, look, we're doing it, we care about you. This is the kind of lift your head out of the details of an event or a situation, or, you know, the latest fear story that they've stuck in front of you. Yeah. And look at the pattern, look at the patternation of their footsteps over the trace of history. And it's undeniable the direction they're walking in, or the direction they're trying to push us in. And that's where you see the thread of those agendas. You know, Jeff covered this subject very well over the years, and it was often, you know, it's one of the main subjects to keep trying to help people realize. Same as I shouldn't sort of assume. I know I'm confident you're the same as me in this respect, and I think Jeff knew this and he was the same. We're not trying to suggest that these people like him have some kind of absolute control over everything that happens. That is not true. That's a fallacy. It's a philosophical fallacy, a logical fallacy that doesn't add up and will be used as a method to ridicule you. Again, it would be another character assassination method. Yeah, they don't control absolutely everything, but they have an immense amount of influence over the mass of the public. This is why both of us constantly talked about propaganda and things like Edward Bernays and Cass Sunstein. Yeah. Jeff was one of the few people I encountered online back in the day that was aware of not just Agenda 21, but of elements like Cass Sunstein and the cognitive infiltration and things like that. You know, it was a subject that we often talked about. We had exchanges about that kind of thing. Yeah. He was one of the few people out there that would cover that kind of subject. Some people will cover the political faces like him, you know, or like Bill Gates that you get presented with day after day. They're on the news media in one way or another, or like Tony Blair, you know, fucking sharks back again. But Jeff knew about people like Cass Sunstein.
It's the psychological, isn't it? The psychological operations that would pull on us over time, over history.
Yeah. See, he was really good at spotting that kind of stuff and researching it to follow the links in the chain and reveal those kind of people in the background and their methods and how they would try and manipulate the public, because they've got fuck all power to influence what happens in the world, you know, the direction the world goes. I've made the argument many times about in reference to the Queen. You know, the Queen's supposed to have all this power and whatever, but really she's just a little old lady in a really big house. That's it. Yeah. If you expect her to change the world, it's not going to happen. You wouldn't want her standing next to you on a battlefield, you know. That's not a good way to set out to win a fight. Yeah.
She's 94, so maybe not so good.
Yeah. But
yeah, go on.
They're just the faces.
Yeah.
You know, what really causes the direction of the world to change is the mass of the population going along with what they're being told or believing a perception of reality that they've been presented with. And again, that was something that Jeff was really good at. Let's have a look at some news media articles about an event, and we can see how they're framing it in a very particular way. They're presenting it in a very particular way. You know, they'd use certain presenters, they'd use certain colours, like they'd have purple ties, or you remember the Ebola green? Yeah, everybody was always wearing the fluorescent green shit.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is how they cause that new world order to be built. His Great Reset requires the mass of the population agreeing and going along with it. Yeah, maybe not necessarily agreeing, but certainly going along with it. So the more people acquiesce and do all the silly requirements that they put in front of us, you know, like Simon says, now if you want to go in the shops, you got to hop on one leg, you know, things like that. As long as you keep acquiescing, they'll keep adding more and more rules. They'll keep pulling the tightening fence in closer and closer and closer. Yeah, like we said, that from our point of view kind of thing, hopefully without making it an us and them or whatever, but for us that makes what we do more apparent. You know, the more they crack down, the more people look for different information or, you know, answers from other places or other ways of living. Yeah
I mean,
away from this corporate blood magic eugenics ideology that these people perpetuate.
Yes, it'd be interesting, I say, next year, and these so-called events or these gatherings, if they, you know, how we go next year.
Let me just get his face off the screen now that I've finished ranting.
It's
idea of whatever.
Not a good look, is it?
No, I was just having a quick look. There's I'll just quickly show you this one because I think it might have been Dino that shared this. I get the impression it probably was. He's been off on one of his walkabouts. I hope you're all right, Dino, and doing well. Getting out in the nature. He's up on the hills. Yeah, a bit of snow on the ground.
Yes, well, it apparently was officially declared in the UK a white Christmas. So if you had a few quid on it,
Yeah,
if you were in that way inclined, I don't know what you'd. Yeah, so it was declared official.
yeah.
Not where I live. It was nothing, just cold.
No, it was just
very windy and wet. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just rain here where I am, and it wasn't exactly.
Lots of parts of the UK did get it, didn't they, on the day?
Oh, if it is Dean, thanks for this photo, Dean. This image is fantastic. I'll just put it up again. And that one. Over the top of the hill.
Yeah, he's in the chat, Dean.
Yeah, that is a really good photo. That is. I think it's quite appropriate for this evening. I was having a flick through to the images just to see if I could find something appropriate, but I think I'll go back to the one that I did earlier, just so before we finish up, right, because we're just coming up to the 10 p.m. But just to reiterate the point yet again, because I think this is really important at the moment because of the way the arseholes out there, the manipulators and whatever else you want to call them, will attempt to profit out of this situation and turn it into something that it's not, and try and use it as a way of manipulating people online in this community. They'll try and harass people with this kind of information and whatever. And as I said earlier, I'm confident in saying, from my knowledge of Jeff C, from all the years of interacting with him, he would not have called himself a hero or leader, but that was the result of his work. And his work speaks for itself. And whatever bullshit might come out over the course of the next few weeks or months or whatever about accusations or speculations about who he was and shit like that, don't let it turn into a cult of personality, character assassination, witch hunt. Yeah, that's exactly how they would want to rubbish all the work he did. No. And he's certainly not, he's not going to be forgotten, let's put it that way. Not for a long time, not in this environment. And I'm not saying that just from my own personal point of view. No, I think there's a lot of people that would feel the same. He helped a lot of people. He influenced a lot of people.
Yeah.
In a good way. Yeah. So maybe that'd be a good place to wrap it up there at that point. I might, hang on, if I can find it towards the end of his video, I could even play the outro that he has at the end of his videos. Oh, hang on. Let me mute it for a sec. See if I can find it at the end. This is a little bit of a longer thing to play. It takes a good, 6-7 minutes, I think, something like that. But if I leave it to just play, say, the last several minutes.
Protect yourself, protect your family.
Maybe I'll let it play his last little few statements there at the end. That then, I think, will be a good way of signing off for this evening.
Thank you, Cookie, and thank you to all in the chat as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to everyone that's come and joined in and listening in, and to all the people that tune in after the live broadcast. They're watching it on the replay, on the video, etc. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for giving us your attention for a little bit. And thank you for the taking the time to listen to Jeff's work and what he was trying to say. Yeah, all good stuff. Okay, I'm going to shut up and let it play. And then at the end of it, I'll close up the show after that. we'll be back on Wednesday night. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the reality chat. Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were going to do it because it
No,
New Year's Eve.
No, it's New Year's Eve's on the Thursday. Yeah,
just
before
one day.
Wednesday. Yeah, so we've got. I will be on. Yeah, I will do one. I said I'll just carry on throughout the rest of the year because it doesn't hit any Christmas Day or anything like that. So just carry on.
That means Steve's show would be on Thursday night if he's on. I don't know if he's.
He did a Christmas Eve, didn't he? He did Christmas Eve. He probably do New Year's Eve. I think. I'm not sure.
Steve Tagoose on Thursday night for the mystery show.
Yeah.
And I should be back as usual next week. And we'll see you again then soon. See you soon, folks. Take care. Cut cheese. I'm going to click the play and then just mute myself and let it play out.
Think it's vaccinated. Think it's one and done. Forget about it. And Bill Gates has come out and said, yeah, we'll probably have to do multiple vaccinations, every month sort of thing. So, they're basically telling you you're going to live in a vax world where everywhere you go, you're just going to be having yourself injected with whatever they want to stick into you. And there's no way that you're going to know what's in those vials. There's no way anybody's going to know. And you're going to see all the celebrities. You're going to see now, you can see all the clowns, all the politicians, the Obamas and the Bushes and all these characters doing it publicly, getting their shots, but it's all bullcrap. There's no way on earth. You'd have to be a retard to believe that you're going to get what they're going to get, right? It's all theater, and that's how it's going to play out. And so we're going to see this whole thing, and it's going to escalate as it looks like it's happening. And they're telling us everything's going to get really bad. Frightening times, dark winter, January. So, yeah, we just got to fight. We got to stand up. We got to be the best that we can, sort of thing, and protect yourself, protect your family, do whatever you need to do. Draw that line right now and stick to it. You're not going to be alone. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, get ready, basically. Stock up on things, supply. This is all going to play out now. We're going to see this whole thing come to fruition, unfortunately. But yeah, it's pretty evil. So anyways, you guys are absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope that if you do enjoy the show and you want to help out, my Patreon links in the description. They don't allow me to monetize, so it's the only way I get paid for anything, and I work really hard. I worked all day preparing the show. So if you want to come on the Patreon, and you can sign up for as little as $2 a month. Doing a Patreon show this week. It's Wednesday. Jeez, I almost forgot. Yeah, it was Wednesday. I'm doing the Patreon show, which is awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. That'll be on Jeff C. Live. And lots more to come. Lots of videos that I'm working on. And yeah, be the change you want to see. Fight the good fight. Stand up for your rights. Fight this tyranny. And yeah, we've got to do the best that we can. Anyways, you guys are absolutely phenomenal. Thank you all so much. I'll let you go out here with my outro, and I'll see you guys all on the next one. Take it easy, folks. Much love.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order can emerge, a new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace. An era in which the nations of the world, east and west, north and south, can prosper and live in harmony. 100 generations have searched for this elusive path to peace, while 1,000 wars raged across the span of human endeavor. And today that new world is struggling to be born. A world quite different from the one we've known. A world where the rule of law supplants the rule of the jungle. A world in which nations recognize the shared responsibility for freedom and justice.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, and we will be, and And we will wait. And we will wait. We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Such is a world worthy of our struggle and worthy of our children's future. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders. And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order, for a new world order, for a new world order now within our reach.
Time and time again about a new world order. And this is the best chance to begin to establish the new world order. And that's why the stakes are so high.
And after 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order. We needed a new world order. We needed a new world order.
Now, much has been said by the Secretary of State and others about a new world order, about a defining moment in history. And how negative or positive it will be will depend on what kind of new world order we really create. Can it really be said that this is a true new world order when it lacks a true United Nations collective security effort?
What do you think America's place in the new world order should be?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order.
There's a need for a new world order.
Henry Kissinger pointed out in his superb book on diplomacy. He said, "None of the most important countries which must build a new world order have had any experience with the multi-state system that is emerging. Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions or on so global a scale."
As I've told you before, because I love it so much, they also created the Great Seal of the United States. And that Great Seal of the United States has on it Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever, 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 forever.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order, a new world order, a new world order.
The transatlantic partnership was never just the foundation of our security. It was the foundation of our way of life. It was forged an experience of the most bitter and anguished kind. Out of it came a new Europe, a new world order, a new world order, a new world order, a new world order.
Commander told me that they were not sure they would be able to contain the fire. I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.